A passionate group of student environmentalists sets off from New York, determined to travel to the Peruvian Amazon to save a local tribe from the brink of extinction and halt the ongoing destruction of their precious rainforest. Everything seems to be progressing smoothly until disaster strikes. Their plane crashes, leaving them stranded in the heart of the green hell they sought to protect. With their hopes dashed and survival hanging by a thread, the students face the harsh reality of the wild. Meanwhile, back at the university, a hunger strike unfolds at 9:12 a.m. as their peers rally for change. Hello and welcome to the Green Inferno. Let's dive into the gripping tale that follows. The sounds of laughter and music pierce the quiet morning, rousing Justine, a sweet and charming girl, from her sleep. The daughter of a UN lawyer, she quickly nudges her best friend Casey, a fiercely outspoken girl with a vibrant personality, to wake up as well. As they make their way back to their room, they pass a store and are drawn to a lively group singing nearby. Justine's attention is immediately captured by the group's charismatic leader, Alejandro, strumming a guitar, and she can't help but find him attractive. In stark contrast, Casey rolls her eyes, unimpressed by his charm. Later, during a thought-provoking lecture, the students are confronted with the grim reality that many tribes in Africa practice female genital mutilation without consent, a shocking revelation that weighs heavily on their minds. The lecture reveals that many tribes practice female genital mutilation for religious reasons, believing that girls aren't truly female until they undergo the procedure. Casey and Justine are filled with disgust at this horrifying tradition, and Justine passionately declares that since her father is a UN lawyer, they should take action to address this injustice. Jonah, a member of their environmental group, overhears this and immediately starts drafting a message to someone who could help. After class, Jonah approaches Justine with exciting news. Alejandro has invited her to join the group for a casual meet and greet to get to know everyone better. Later, during lunch, Justine seizes the opportunity to discuss the issue of African tribes with her father, eager to explore how they might make a difference together. Justine broached the sensitive subject of female genital mutilation with her father, Charles, who cautioned her that addressing such complex issues wasn't straightforward. It couldn't be solved with a simple solution. Undeterred, Justine resolved to visit the environmental group that evening, eager to learn more. Alejandro captivated the group with his passionate talk about the perilous state of the Peruvian Amazon, highlighting the looming extinction of a local tribe and the destruction of vital rainforest land threatened by bulldozers and armed mercenaries funded by powerful multinational corporations. Inspired by the urgency of their mission, Justine couldn't help but chime in, asking what their plans were and lightheartedly joking about starting a hunger strike to draw attention to their cause. Feeling hurt by Alejandro's harsh dismissal, Justine was determined to make amends and approached him the next morning to apologize. She expressed her sincere desire to help and make a difference, particularly in the fight for women's rights in Africa. However, Alejandro continued to insist that she wasn't ready, masking his true intentions behind a facade of tough love. In reality, he was playing psychological games, hoping to draw Justine in even more, fully aware of her father's position as a UN lawyer. Alejandro aimed to leverage the principle of consistency studied by Cialdini, nudging her towards greater commitment. Justine, in her own words, expressed her commitment to the cause, unaware of the subtle manipulations at play. Justine passionately declared her desire to make a difference and help those in need, fully aware that she wanted to remain consistent with her words and not let others down. Alejandro recognized this commitment and planned to use it to his advantage later in the story. Afterward, he gathered everyone to explain the plan. They would fly to the Amazon and then trek through the jungle to the site where the bulldozers and armed mercenaries were set to arrive. The group would go unarmed, armed only with their phones to document the events in real time. Alejandro emphasized that broadcasting their actions live around the world would put the mercenaries in a precarious position, making it a dangerous mistake for them to resort to violence. Justine was filled with excitement as she shared her plans for the upcoming trip with her friend Casey, who, however, was skeptical and pessimistic about the entire venture. Undeterred, Justine assured her father that she was going on an expedition with the other students, emphasizing that they would be safe and that there wouldn't be any problems. "Yeah, we're sure," she added with forced confidence. Later, the group met Carlos, a wealthy businessman who had invested heavily in Alejandro's plan. Just before boarding the plane, Alejandro leaned in and confided in Carlos that Justine was the key to their entire operation, hinting at the pivotal role she would play in their mission. Justine, still unaware of the crucial role she would play, disembarked from the plane with the rest of the group and boarded local cabs that took them to a small town where they could rest, eat, and organize themselves. During lunch, Alejandro dropped a bombshell. The mercenaries they would face were armed and might resort to violence, even if it seemed impractical. A wave of unease washed over the group, and murmurs of doubt began to circulate. Sensing their hesitation, Alejandro stood up, firmly reminding them that no one had forced them to come, emphasizing the importance of staying true to their decisions. His words silenced the chatter, and after a moment of contemplation, they collectively resolved to see the plan through to the end. The next day, they set off into the heart of the forest, determined to confront the challenges that lay ahead. As the group ventured deeper into the forest, they felt the weight of their mission ahead, knowing that this was where it would all unfold. Suddenly, they encountered a magnificent jaguar, revered in these parts as the guardian of nature, believed to have the power to send sinners straight to hell. Undeterred by the creature's imposing presence, they pressed on, knowing they had to disguise themselves as workers to infiltrate the site. Once they arrived, they cleverly waited for the workers to take their lunch break, seizing the opportunity to slip inside unnoticed. With their plan in motion, they donned masks and began chaining themselves to the very trees marked for destruction, determined to document their protest on camera. One by one, they secured themselves according to the plan, ready to make a stand for the rainforest they fought so passionately to protect. Justine felt a wave of panic wash over her when she realized that her lock was sabotaged and she couldn't secure herself to the tree like the others. Just as the group began recording their protest and chanting slogans, an explosion rocked the area, drawing the attention of the mercenaries, who soon arrived, guns drawn. They quickly assessed the scene, noticing that everyone was tied up and unable to defend themselves except for Justine, who was left unbound and forced to her knees. As her mask was ripped off, panic surged through her, but before she could react, Alejandro shouted at the mercenaries, declaring that Justine's father was a UN lawyer and warning them that shooting would end in disastrous consequences for them all. The tension in the air was palpable, with the fate of the group hanging precariously in the balance. Justine's heart raced as the mercenary pointing a gun at her suddenly received a phone call, ordering everyone to lower their weapons. Relieved yet confused, the group was escorted back to their boats and then taken to the airplane. While the rest of the team celebrated their narrow escape, Justine felt the weight of dread settle over her, knowing she was being used as bait and was moments away from a bullet in her head. Just as despair threatened to engulf her, Jonah leaned in and reminded her that, because of her bravery, they had managed to save the forest and the nearby village. Just then, an alarming jolt shook the plane, and as alarms blared, they realized with horror that the aircraft had malfunctioned and was on fire, plunging them into chaos once more. As the airplane plummeted from the sky, two people were hurled from its depths, while the rest braced for impact as the aircraft crashed violently to the ground. Miraculously, the group emerged alive but battered, covered in blood and injuries. Sadly, the pilots and their assistant were not so fortunate. Just as they began to process the chaos around them, a group of indigenous people appeared on the horizon, drawn to the wreckage. Kara, desperate for help, called out to them, but her cries were abruptly silenced when an arrow struck her squarely, sending her reeling. In the midst of the turmoil, the rest of the group found themselves overwhelmed as ferrets launched from the underbrush knocked them unconscious, leaving them vulnerable in a dire situation. Justine, Alejandro, Lars, Daniel, Samantha, and Amy were led into a village and surrounded by the native inhabitants, who had striking red skin and long black hair, their curious eyes scrutinizing every move the environmentalists made. The villagers groped them with a mixture of fascination and caution, and after each group member was examined one by the village leader, they were shockingly locked inside a cage, leaving only Jonah outside, laid out on a stone platform. In a horrifying display of power, the village chief coldly cut out Jonah's tongue and consumed it raw, relishing the act. After brutally chopping him into pieces, the chief drank Jonah's blood, issuing a chilling command to the women of the village, heightening the tension and fear that enveloped the group. As the chief commanded the women to cook Jonah's meat, the grim reality of the natives' cannibalistic nature became painfully clear. While the villagers feasted together, laughter erupted as Amy, trapped in the cage, began to feel ill and rushed to the corner to relieve herself, their mocking jeers ringing in her ears. As evening descended, the tension inside the cage thickened, with Lars accusing Alejandro of leading them into this nightmare by revealing too much truth. They hadn't halted the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. They had merely postponed it, and lurking in the background was Carlos's company, deeply invested in this grim scenario, their presence a constant reminder of the consequences of their mission gone awry. The dire situation grew more desperate as the realization sank in that the company would arrive in just a few days to begin cutting down the trees. But there was a flicker of hope. Their mission had gained international attention, and perhaps they could still make a difference. As Samantha attempted to escape through the bars of their cage, she was swiftly struck by darts that sent her into a deep slumber. The following morning, an indigenous boy approached their prison, and Justine, clutching the small flute that hung around her neck, began to play a haunting melody that filled the air. Suddenly, the executioner entered the cage, and Justine, along with Samantha and Amy, was forcibly taken from their confines to face the village chief, the weight of their fate hanging heavily in the air. The tension escalated as Justine's fate took a terrifying turn. Her genitals were probed with a sharp instrument, revealing her as a virgin, leading to her removal for the horrific preparation of genital mutilation, while Samantha and Amy were thrown back into the cage, their hearts racing with fear and desperation. Determined to escape, the survivors devised a plan, and Samantha seized an opportunity during a diversion, slipping away toward safety. Meanwhile, Justine was returned to the cage, her body half naked and painted white with red dots, a chilling reminder of the ordeal she was enduring. As they spoke in hushed tones, the children of the village brought food for the survivors, pieces of meat drenched in a mysterious sauce. But as Amy took a bite, a grim realization washed over her. The natives had captured something far more sinister than just their bodies. The horrifying truth dawned on the survivors as Amy realized that the natives had cooked and eaten her friend Samantha. In a wave of disgust and despair, she took her own life with a shard of the bowl from which she had eaten. As Amy's lifeless body lay among them, the remaining members of the group grasped the chilling reality. The natives would not discard her, and she would suffer the same fate as their fallen friends. In a desperate bid to turn the tables, Lars hatched a plan. He filled Amy's body with marijuana, hoping to incapacitate the cannibals when they consumed her flesh. To his astonishment, the plan worked. The natives became higher than Snoop Dogg after his fourth joint at breakfast, leaving them in a state of blissful confusion as the survivors plotted their next move. One by one, the survivors began to escape from the cage, but just as Lars was about to make his move, Alejandro struck him with a dart that sent him into a paralyzing stupor. When Lars regained consciousness, he found himself at the mercy of the marijuana-affected natives, who, overcome by the munchies, were hungry for flesh. Desperate to flee, Lars attempted to run, but the cannibals pursued him, viciously devouring him alive and raw. Meanwhile, Daniel and Justine faced numerous challenges on their treacherous journey toward the crash site, but by evening, they finally arrived at the remnants of the plane, hopeful yet terrified of what lay ahead. Justine and Daniel stood frozen in horror at the gruesome sight of their friends impaled on wooden stakes, reminiscent of the brutal tactics employed by Vlad Dracula against his enemies. As they desperately searched for a phone, Kara's lifeless body suddenly fell onto Justine, drawing the attention of the nearby natives, who swiftly captured both of them. The following day, Justine found herself being prepped for genital mutilation, while Daniel endured a torturous fate, tied to a pole. The natives painted Justine's body white, a chilling ritual, while the executioner smeared a mysterious green substance on Daniel's clothes, which ominously attracted swarms of large, voracious ants, signaling the horror that awaited them both. As the large ants began to feast on Daniel, the village leader prepared to commence the gruesome ritual, but his focus shifted abruptly with the arrival of the logging crew. The natives quickly armed themselves, ready to defend their territory against the encroaching threat. Amid the chaos, Justine found unexpected aid from the young boy to whom she had played her flute. Seizing the opportunity, she blew a white powder into the face of an indigenous woman, sending her into a deep sleep. With newfound determination, Justine turned her gaze towards Daniel, who hung helplessly from the stake, and knew she had to act quickly to save him. But it was too late for Daniel. His legs were broken, and in a heartbreaking act of mercy, the little boy ended his suffering. Justine found herself caught in the chaos of the conflict between the natives and the mercenaries. Desperate, she managed to convince the armed men that she was American, staging a fake recording that showcased her as a participant from the initial demonstration. Her ruse worked, and the mercenaries, recognizing her, chose not to shoot. Justine was ultimately rescued by an armed forces helicopter, but as she was lifted to safety, she kept silent about the true horrors she had witnessed, knowing that some stories were too painful to share. Justine awoke to the realization that Alejandro was alive, but the armed forces had already exterminated most of the tribe. Upon her return to New York, she found herself under intense questioning by government and UN officials. In a desperate bid for survival, Justine perjured herself, claiming she was the sole survivor of the plane crash and that the natives had been friendly, helping her before the armed groups of oil companies descended upon them. Some time later, after waking from a haunting nightmare, Justine gazed out her campus window, grappling with the weight of her deceit and the memories of those she had left behind. As the credits roll, a group of activists clad in T-shirts, bearing Alejandro's face in the iconic style of Che Guevara stands united, a poignant tribute to their fallen leader. Suddenly, Justine receives a phone call from Alejandro's sister, Lucia, who urgently informs her that a satellite image has captured a figure resembling Alejandro in the jungle, raising hopes that he may still be alive despite the armed militia's deadly assault. Thanks for watching. Please leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See ya.